Well, where do we go from here? To talk about that, I'm joined by Janka Oertel. She is from the German Marshall Fund, her specialty, of course, the Korean Peninsula. It's good to have you on the show. I want to ask you about the rebuke coming from North Korea this evening, saying that the claim by the U.S. president that Kim Jong-un wanted all sanctions to be lifted is not true. What do you make of that?
It's very interesting that they came out with this statement relatively quickly, because normally the process goes differently. It's more of a, you play this in the North Korean media kind of way. So that means that they wanted their narrative, a counter-narrative, out there relatively quickly. They have a lot to lose, and they have a lot to gain from economic sanctions being lifted. 40% of the population is malnourished at the moment. They have a severe food shortage coming up. So Kim Jong-un wanted concrete results from this summit. So they had more intention of actually having their message out there.
But you think it is true, the story we're getting from Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is the one who walked away and said no more? It's
hard to say at this moment. I think we're at a moment where it's kind of like we're deconstructing what happened now, way back, and it will take a few days to really analyze the situation. I'm going to look forward to the statements that are coming from Beijing as well. I would like to hear more from what Seoul makes of the situation. I think it's a bit early to tell at this point in time.
What about the possibility of a third summit? Do you think that will happen?
Well, it sounded like it when Donald Trump gave his press conference, and Kim Jong-un has every interest in having another summit. So I think there's not much reason not to have one. The question is when. It does seem a little bit like kicking the can down the road at the moment. So maybe it will take a little while until the next summit comes up. So hopefully it's better prepared.
Well, that's the thing. What was the purpose of this summit then?
That's a very good question, because one would think that if normally these are formalities. Yeah. Normally the leaders sign a document, and sometimes it can need the leader to give a little push and to give it to take it over the tipping point. But it seems like nothing was prepared, or that they were going from completely different assumptions at this point in time. And so I don't think that this was a good timing for the summit.
Now, when you say nothing was prepared, you mean on the American side?
Well, I think on both sides there seems to be a lack of understanding of the other's demands, which should have been ironed out way before this summit.
This has been a very non-traditional way of negotiating. We've seen it top down. Trump has insisted on being the one face to face with Kim Jong-un, but we know he's not a man for details, and we know he doesn't like to read. Has he been taught a lesson here that maybe you need to let the lower level, the diplomats, the experts, do their work first?
Maybe that goes a little too far of Trump actually being able to learn a lesson here at this point in time. But I think it did underline the fact that you can pull off a Singapore summit. You can take all the media attention that it gets, and it will push the process forward. And this is what actually happened. There was more movement than any time before on the Korean Peninsula, which is something that should be lauded. But you can't repeat that. Substance has to follow at a certain point, and this has to be well prepared. So he has to, his team also has to be able to negotiate on his behalf with a certain degree of authority, which it apparently hasn't had so far.
The scandal in Washington, the testimony by Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, do you think that weakened the position of Donald Trump in the eyes of Kim Jong-un?
I think it weakened Donald Trump because his attention was in Washington and it wasn't in Hanoi. And I think that was a mistake. He admitted in the press conference that he was actually watching some of the testimony. It clearly touched and bothered him. So I think for something as important as negotiations about denuclearizing the North Korean peninsula with a dictator that's known for human rights violations, you kind of need all the attention you have. And you can't be with one foot in Washington, D.C. So the timing of the summit was really not optimal.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder who was more committed to this process. And just looking at the body language, looking at the entire experience, it seems that North Korea went in more invested than Donald Trump did. Or am I seeing that?
Well, they have more to lose, and there's a lot of other stuff going on at the same time for Donald Trump, for him not to focus on this. So if this could have been an easy gain, then that's fine. But at the moment, I don't think he has the ability to focus on this too much with all the other foreign policy and domestic challenges that he's facing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Janka Oertel with the German Marshall Fund. We appreciate your insights tonight. Thank you.